Hello and welcome to episode 98 of the Arena Regulars podcast. I'm Zach.
And I'm Jeff.
And we're your source for drunken Magic the Gathering arena content.
That's right. Just a couple of regular dudes drinking some irregular beers, talking about Magic the Gathering, in particular, the online client MTG Arena.
And today's episode is all about draft. What's on draft, bro? The Brothers War. That's what's on draft currently. So we are going to get all into that. But first, each week we bring a beer, we drink Jeff's, then drink mine, rate them on a scale of bronze to mythic, and choose the best for last. So with that, Jeff, what is on tap?
All right. We have a beer called Pilly. Unsurprisingly, it's a Pilsner. It's from Mascot Brewing. And I like how they labeled it Flavorful Pilsner.
Yeah.
That was nice.
It is. I mean, they added some dry hops to it. So there is like tropical citrus and floral notes. So I think that's probably what they're talking about with their flavorful Pilsner.
Gotcha. I don't think that's an official beer style.
Oh, no.
Pilsner. But,
No, that's all marketing, obviously.
Yeah. And they also misspelled flavor. But what can you do?
No, that looks fine to me.
Yeah, no. There should be a U.
No. Just O is fine.
Flavor has a U in it, folks.
It doesn't. Anyway, we have some magic news. Explore Anthology number 2 is coming out next week, December 13th, and we have most of the cards spoiled for us already. We talked a little bit about this last week, so maybe we should pick up where we left off. Jeff, you had a card you wanted to talk about, maybe, possibly?
Yes. I think no one will be surprised to hear that I love Satyr Wayfinder. I've been asking for it forever, and finally, they give it to me. Now, they had to wrap it in a lot of Oath of the Gatewatch garbage. But, yeah, Satyr Wayfinder, amazing addition, and I love to see it here. Any cards you're super pumped about?
Absolutely. Reflector Mage for sure, because I'm just really getting into my Coco deck. So
sorry.
Yeah, that card's gonna be
great. If
great.
you hear a vomit off screen, that's probably
yeah. But mainly the main one I want to play, and I've been waiting for a long time, is Ethereal Armor. Hell yeah,
of course,
fucking yes. So Boggles players rejoice. Or me by myself, because apparently nobody else wants to play this deck. But I'm excited for that card specifically.
I will say there's some cool stuff here, like Shaman of the Pack for elves. Eidolon of the Great Revel goes a long way for mono red. Like mono red might actually be a thing now. Mutavault also goes a long way in that regard. Then there's a bunch of Eldrazi that I personally don't care about, but I know people like.
Well, wait.
I will say
Wait. But you do like Eldrazi Displacer, though.
Yes, Eldrazi Display. I think I've gone on record as saying it's the only card in Oath of the Gatewatch that I like. It's a great, very well designed card.
Yeah,
so I was happy to see that there.
There you go.
I am sympathetic to the criticism that Explorer is meant to meet up with Pioneer, and there's a lot of like cards that just don't see play in Pioneer in this. So it's a little bit like, what is this for? Like, nobody plays Thought-Knot Seer, Courser of Crufix, certainly like Kozilek. Most of this stuff just doesn't see play. Clever Impersonator, like, what is this?
Yeah, so those cards are probably commandery things, because Kozilek, the Great Distortion, Clever Impersonator, and Sliver Hive Lord, those are cards that commander players really like and tend to be their people.
Okay, but explain Dispel to me then.
I don't know why they put Dispel in. That seems so weird.
Like, nobody plays this. Like, you just play, like, when you play Dispel, it's always for blue decks, so you should just play Mystical Dispute. It's just better.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's just
nobody plays Dispel.
I don't know.
It felt like it was just like, we need to add another card, and also it's like, what's a card that just isn't in Arena for some reason, but is like super basic or whatever? And Dispel does fit that bill.
Yeah, it's true. I mean,
Rending Volley, it's like
Rending Volley is huge.
Sideboards.
Yeah. I think Rending Volley is one of the big ones, because if you look at most every deck list, that'll be played in a sideboard. It's like cheaper fry. So I'm happy that card got added because a lot of
Yeah, I think
that will there are a lot of lists now that will look almost identical to their Pioneer list because Rending Volley's in it.
I think my criticism of that card is more that why haven't we just gotten another effect like this since cons? Like, why is this the only good card for what it does? Like, why is it so necessary to put this card back in the format? Why can't we just have a card that does a similar thing? Because that's probably just like the person who just built a paper deck speaking, where this card's like pushing double digits and it's a random uncommon from like Cons of Tarkir. It's like, let's just it's not like this card is crazy, let's just print something that does a similar thing.
Yeah, or just print it again,
or just reprint it like you said, it has a generic name or whatever, so it can be reprinted anywhere.
Exactly. We were talking earlier before we started recording about
that was off.
About reprints and about how Wizards should be really conscious of the names they give certain cards so that they could reprint them easily in the future. Specifically talking about how the triomes are all very specific lands for the plane that they're on, most notably like Xander's Lounge and stuff from New Capenna, which makes it impossible for them to reprint them outside of those planes. Why would you do that? They also got rid of core sets, so you can't just... Because you could normally just have whatever stuff in core sets. This is a great example of Rending Volley. You can put that in most every set. That's like... It can be whatever.
And then generally there's like Soldier of the Pantheon, which is like... I get it. Soldier's new thing. But like this card just isn't powerful enough to make it anymore. Like this was good in standard Theros. Maybe this is a sideboard card against like 5-color decks where everything is multicolored.
Sure.
Maybe, but it's probably not worth it. So it's like these things are all super weird because there's some additions that it's just like, is anyone ever going to play this? Why is this in here?
Yeah, also didn't we just get a card like this that's the Soldier that is protection? It's like a 1/1 for... Maybe it costs 2. So that's... The difference.
Right.
No, maybe. Yeah. I don't even know if it costs... I don't remember what it costs. But anyway, it has protection from multicolored.
Nobody's going to play this, and it's not like a cool card that you could build new decks around. It's just like, I don't know why this is here. But, our philosophy, we've spoken on this in the past, our philosophy about these types of sets is if there's 2 or 3 cards that you are excited about, that's a win. Like, that's huge. And so I do feel that way about this, so...
Almost all the cards I want are commons and uncommons. Sick.
Oh, yeah, another huge win, right? Like, this is not going to cost me any wild cards because I don't care about any of the rares or mythics. I like the common. I mean, I care about Mutavault, I guess.
Yeah, I was going to say Mutavault is what I care about.
Mutavault. Yeah.
But besides that...
But I'm huge on Zulaport Cutthroat as well, so it's like, yes, Cutthroat and Wayfinder. Yeah.
A bunch of mythics I don't care about. Sick.
Yeah.
That's perfect. I don't care. So
I do like Eldrazi Displacer though.
You're probably
some rare wild cards.
Yeah, you're probably gonna build some janky deck with that. Hey, maybe in the third one you'll get Dubious Challenge. There's technically...
I mean, if they're gonna they're just taunting me, right? They gave me Cutthroat, they gave me Displacer. This is like so close to what I need to build a combo deck. Just no Dubious Challenge? Come on.
Yeah. Well, there's 3 cards left to be revealed, I believe. So... We'll see.
I would be floored. I'd be floored if Dubious Challenges on them, but I would love it.
No, what's really going to happen...
It would confirm that Mark Rosewater listens to this podcast.
Well, we'll actually know that if they send us Dubious Challenge to be previewed.
That was our preview card? Oh my god.
Yeah,
that's how you know you made it.
Yeah. So that would be pretty crazy, but too bad we'll never be given a preview card from Wizards because we drink too much beer. Whatever, it's worth it.
Unless it's like an unset and they change their philosophy about drinking strongly.
I don't think so. I don't even think we could get an unset.
Seems unlikely.
Yeah, probably unlikely. Unless they give us something like Sacred Nectar or something. That would be pretty funny.
That'd be great.
But also just like, please don't reprint that card. Anyway, so we'll see what happens when that all comes out. But today is about draft. So we should probably get into that.
Let's talk about draft.
Yeah, talking about draft. Bro draft, Brothers War draft. I want to start off by saying I have been doing fairly poorly in draft.
Okay.
I did want to say that, like, since we last talked about draft, of course, I immediately get a trophy with that freaking goblin that I was shitting on.
I knew it, yeah.
So the 1/1 goblin that if you sacrifice something, it gets +3/+0 and menace, or +2/+0, whatever it is. Yeah, that card. Well, serves me right for talking a lot of smack, because it ended up being pivotable. Oh my god!
I was able to pivot
pivotal
on it
in my deck, and that ended up being exactly what I needed.
Has it changed your opinion of the card, or do you still think it's overrated?
I still don't love it, but I also don't see them very often because people are really high on it. So then I never really have to think about it, and I just
Always happens
don't get to
me,
play
right?
red very often because
Community loves this card. I think it's whatever. I just never play with it because
exactly I can't. Like, I would play it if I could get them late, but you can't. So
right.
there's just no. I'm not going to pick
So
that
it's
card.
not like you think it's bad. You just don't think it's a top 4 pick. You
Yeah.
think it's more like a 5 through 8 pick.
Yeah, and I guess I haven't been beaten down enough. Like, my opponents haven't killed me enough with that card for me to think like, oh god, I need to either deal with it or make sure I have it on my side. It just hasn't really been the case for me. So I'm still kind of like meh about it. But if my only trophy is playing like red black sacrifice and that card was important, okay, fine.
You said the format wasn't going super well for you. I will say, official brag time. I am 21-2 in this format.
Oh my god.
But there's 2 takeaways from that. 1, I've only played 3 drafts. 2, I was in Bronze League, so results are not super fair. Like, some of my wins were like my opponents don't have functional decks.
Yeah.
This is just like you've played nothing, and then you played like a random thing that just doesn't affect the board at all.
Yeah.
I just attacked you 3 times.
Every turn. On turn 5, you play a Mind's Eye, and it's like, okay.
Stuff like that, yeah.
Wow. And it's just like nothing happens. Yeah, I totally.
It's like, okay, well, I played 2 drop, 3 drop, 4 drop, so it's not looking great for you.
Yeah, so.
And I've played red all 3 times. I played Boros Rakdos, so I don't have a ton of experience, but I have done a lot of research.
I don't have a ton of experience, but I have done a lot of winning.
Yeah, I just win.
I don't know what happens. No, see, Jeff, I've been trying to play different decks. I've been wanting to do different things, and I can't.
Thank you for exploring the format for the sake of the podcast.
Yeah, I'm wasting all of my resources because I'm just getting fucking wrecked. Because
so our official recommendation is just play Boros.
Yeah, it literally is like play Boros or mono white, because you might not be able to play mono red.
Color is actually a kind of a thing. I've played against a few decks that were just monocolored, and they didn't look atrocious, right? It wasn't like, oh, this person's just crazy and is just playing one color. It's like, oh, there are so many artifacts that you actually can make this happen. But I was thinking maybe we go over just like some overall things. Like, do we think it's a fast format? Do we think it's like pauper prints, that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
So what about the speed of the format? Have you felt like it's super, super fast or slow? Or
I hear a lot of things about how fast this format is, and I don't know if it's just because of I'm not in higher tiers and people's decks aren't amazing. And streamlined. But I have not been getting just steamrolled. Like, it doesn't feel like Amonkhet that was like blisteringly fast. I'm not losing on like turn 4 or 5. That hasn't been happening. People do come at you pretty quickly, but that feels like every other format to me. There are decks that are really fast, and then there are decks that are slow and you can't stop. So I've had several games where I'm counting my deck to see if I'm going to get decked before they do.
Right.
that has happened a lot. So to me, it just doesn't feel like that. It just feels like a regular. The best decks are fast decks because they go under the big ones if you try to do big stupid stuff. So just make sure you can deal with the fast decks.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. Like, I've been smashing people with fast decks, obviously. But like I said, I did like research, so I've been watching videos, I've been reading articles, and like using 17 lands, which, you know, we always talk about, just great data for this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just because I haven't had like a ton of time to do drafts myself, but I think the format's really cool and like want to do more and engage with it more. I think the reason we're seeing everyone's saying, oh, it's so fast, is not because the format's so fast. I think the format for me is fast-ish, but like you were saying, sort of like below. Sorry, I was going to say below medium fast. Like whatever the average is, it's a little faster than that.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
For sure.
But it's not like you're saying a crazy aggro format. And I think where this is coming from is two things. First, there are a lot of aggro decks in the format. So I would say Boros, Rakdos, and Azorius are all aggro decks. And maybe even Orzhov, actually, can be like considered aggro, right? Like, and that's 4 out of the 10 archetypes are like definitively aggro strategies. That's much higher than usual. Usually there's like 2, and then a bunch of mid-range, and then 2 slow decks kind of thing. So I'd have 4 aggro decks that are all, you know, spoiler alert, pretty good. Makes it feel faster. But also I think people just expected it to be slow because it's a bunch of big artifact creatures.
That's what I was going to say.
And so the fact that it came in a little above average on speed took them by surprise. And so it's always like, oh man, this format's so fast. It's like, it's actually just sort of fast, but you were expecting it to be like a slow lumbering format. And so the delta in your expectation is what's making you feel that way.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were kind of expecting the prototype cards to be like, oh, I'm going to shoot for playing the big side, but I will probably have to settle for the small side sometimes. When really it's like, no, the card you should play as prototype, and then if you could happen to get,
you should evaluate the card as its prototype side,
because it's almost always played as a prototype side. Like, rarely do you see the bigger one, and Power Stones are obviously prevalent, and they do come up. Usually they throw me off with my mana because I count it wrong because I forget what I'm trying to cast. So I like leave up a counter spell. I'm like, I can't cast this because
great, Power Stones don't tap for that.
So that will happen, or people will be able to activate their abilities before I really think they can, because I'm like, oh fuck, I forgot about the stupid Power Stone over there. So that will happen, but it doesn't feel like it's some of these decks that are like just ramping out these Power Stones and playing like giant stuff at you, because the removal feels pretty strong, and there's a lot of stuff that just gets rid of. There's, like I was saying, like I've played another deck where pack one, pick one, Cityscape Leveler, and I had the same issue where like I get to slam it and kill one of their things, but then they can immediately exile it or something. I'm like,
yeah, it definitely suffers from it's 10 mana and doesn't win the game.
It's only 8 mana.
I know, but like, you know, the
exactly.
idea
Right,
of, like,
right,
so
right.
expensive.
Okay, yeah,
but
for
it
sure.
Doesn't. It's a sorcery speed, and it doesn't say you win the game.
Yeah, it just says kill their biggest thing. Now they have to deal with this, and then next turn you'll probably kill their next biggest thing if they did destroy it.
Yeah. The other thing I would say is, like, I think the community just spins slow to adapt to the new era of Magic, which is just faster than people. Like, so many people just have this idea of what limited is, and New Age Magic is, I don't want to say it's faster than that necessarily, but like getting to the board early is more important.
Yeah.
Like 2-drops just matter. They just matter in every set now, always. And people are always like, oh, 2-drops really matter in this format. It's like, how long do we have to keep saying that before we just accept that 2-drops really
always
matter?
Limited? Yeah. 2-drops, playing decks with, you know, a ridiculous amount of 2-drops is good. you that's how you win.
And I feel like people are always like, oh, I have so many 2-drops. I should take the 3-drop to fill up my curve. It's like, no, the 2-drop is always better. Like,
play.
Having 8 2-drops is never a problem. Having 8 3-drops can be a problem.
Yes. Yeah. The amount of games where I'm like, my opening hand is like a 3-drop. I'm like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, I'm probably going to lose. I'm on the draw and I don't have a play till turn 3. I'm probably going to lose.
And I'm just like crossing my fingers at the first 2 turns.
But I also
my opponent does
can't
nothing.
mulligan.
Yeah, because if you have your like mulliganing in limited can be horrible because
right, it's so bad for you.
Yeah. And if you have your colors, you really have no reason to mulligan. It's like
in constructed, when your deck does a specific thing, you can mulligan a lot more, right? You're like, oh, I don't have the specific thing, mulligan. In limited, it's just like, no, you pretty much only mulligan if it's like this hand cannot win.
Yeah,
basically.
This hand has 0 lands, or this hand has 6, and the first thing I can play is like turn 5. So
yeah,
because every time you keep that hand, you never draw something you can play. You just draw more lands.
Anytime I keep a land heavy hand, land.
Yeah, you're like, oh fuck, and then the game's over, and then because Jeff was playing against you and he attacked you till you're dead.
I played a 1-drop and
well, there you go. It has first strike, so.
Yeah, so I would say, like, honestly, this format's probably, like, medium by modern day standards, but that puts it to, like, medium fast in terms of how people tend to think about limited.
Yeah.
Like, modern day always has, good aggro decks, and this has a lot of good aggro decks in it.
Yes.
But they're also good slow decks, so maybe it's just a well-designed format.
Yeah, look at that. Maybe it is. But, with that being said, and me, like, sucking ass, it's been fun, as I say, every single time, because
so fun.
I just love playing draft, and I'm not at the point, like, really when my attitude goes down is when I don't have enough resources to keep drafting. That's when I start hating the draft format, because then I build up resources to play once, and then I lose and I get mad.
I blew it. That was my chance to like double my resources
to get back in.
Yeah.
So that hasn't happened, and I haven't had to put any more money into the game, which is always a nice thing. So that is good.
Yeah, I was saying before too. Like, I love the flavor, so it's like I really want to get in and do more drafts because I think it's a really cool set. I just haven't totally had the time, but like the flavor is great.
Yeah.
And so beyond, sorry,
go. No, you go ahead.
I was just going to move us to the next phase here. Like, beyond speed, the classic question is Prince or Pauper. How do you feel about that?
It does feel more so like a Pauper set to me, because there are big bombs that like you basically win, but also a lot of time you just don't. Like I've been playing where it's like I feel like I'm slamming the best bomb in the format. Like I'm playing this fucking huge thing that destroys the game, or people have played things against me where I'm like, oh, I think I'm going to lose. I'm like, wait, no, I have ways to get rid of this, and as long as I built my deck well, there's like good removal, and a lot of these like uncommon and common creatures, like really, they're houses. Like you can just really, your bomb can be like an uncommon, and that's usually what makes me feel like a Pauper set is the way to go, or what it is.
Totally. I was leaning towards Pauper as well.
But
it's interesting because I think some of the uncommons are bombs. So it's like, I guess we still call that Pauper, but like there are bombs. Some of the rares are very, very good. I think like a couple of the commands are like crazy good, like nigh impossible to beat. Some of the artifacts like that can just show up are like crazy. But again, I kind of feel like this is just modern sets. Modern sets have very, very efficient and powerful like rares and mythics that are lopsidedly powerful for limited, but sort of make up for it by just having a high power level of commons and some really strong uncommons as well. So I think this is, again, like the quintessential example of like what a modern day pauper set looks like. It's like you win based on your commons and uncommons. Sure, the rares are bombs, but like that's just how it goes these days. Like gone are the days where 90% of the rares were garbage. That's just like not the world we're in anymore.
Yeah.
So
Which is good for everyone. Thank God.
I think so too. Right. Yeah. But like I see people calling it a print set, and I'm like, I don't think this is a print set. Like it's just not. Like there are a few really, really tough to beat rares, sure. But I don't know. That's just modern day Magic. Like they have to print stuff that's relevant, and some of it's going to be really good and limited. Like what do you want?
Yeah.
Like how many of these rares are better than the spider? The spider's crazy.
The spider's very good. And, you know, a lot of these are also like you usually have to survive long enough for you to be able to play your Portal to Phyrexia, which is really backbreaking.
And even then, it's like Titania's command is what, like a few bears and some +2/+2 counters. Like it's not unbeatable. You're probably gonna lose, but it's not unbeatable.
Well, it's also not easy to play because I had one and still lost a lot. Where I literally, it's funny we're talking about these two cards, but I was literally playing against someone who slammed their Portal to Phyrexia on me. I'm like, great, okay, so I sacrificed 3 creatures, awesome, and I had Titania's command in my hand, so I exiled my graveyard so they couldn't take any of my creatures.
Nice.
Which I was like, awesome, heads up play, and then gave myself some...
Gain some life.
Yeah, and so that felt good until I attacked into them with my, like, big trampling, like, 8-9 or whatever, and then they blocked, because I just forgot that they had the rare, what is it, Lauren of the Third Path?
Oh, yeah.
So it blocked and died, and then it came back, killed my big trampling artifact, and then they can take my big trampling artifact on the next turn. I'm like, oh, gotcha. Yeah, so I should have looked at your board before I attacked. That was my fault. I just completely misplayed this.
I don't know if I put
horribly.
that loss on Titania's command. I feel like
no, that was my fault. Yeah, that was
you.
dumb. Yeah, I thought I was doing something really smart and then didn't think about anything else. So
right.
Classic me.
It's funny because when you mentioned that, I was like, wait, what are you talking about? Because the only thing I've ever seen Titania's command do is make bears and then put counters on everything.
Yes.
But I was like, oh, it can exile graveyards. Yeah, okay.
Yep, it can. And that was the only time because at first I was like, oh, I'll just get some bears and make a big team and just fight through all the creatures they bring back. I was like, but my graveyard is the only one that has creatures in it right now, so maybe I should just get rid of mine. I have nothing in there I'm going to use. But
I brought up Titania's command because it was instrumental in both of my losses. It's very difficult for an aggro deck to beat Titania's command. But.
Yep. Yeah, because it makes, at the very least, 2 4/4s. And
yeah, that's like the worst mana. Case scenario.
Yeah. Just like, okay. But yeah, I was playing it today with... I was splashing for Urza, the rare Urza, that gives all your artifacts +2/+2. And that was fun, because then all my artifacts seem small, and then I slam Urza, and then I slam Titania's command, and they all get huge. But then I still don't have trample, so I just sit there for a little bit and wait until I have a good time to attack.
Classic.
Yeah, and then it still didn't work. So anyway, yeah. That's just how I've been. That's how it's been going.
That's how she goes.
Yeah, basically.
Do we want to start going into the archetypes?
Sure. Let's probably start with Boros, because we've been talking about it so much.
Weirdly enough, Boros is an aggro deck in this format.
That's so strange. All these other sets.
I know.
Like, what? Isn't it usually like recurring artifacts from the graveyard and carrying my graveyard stuff?
Lorehold, right?
Oh,
it's
right.
Lorehold.
Yes, of course.
Boros.
Right. Boros. No, Boros aggro does Boros aggro stuff and does it really well. Doesn't even need like a big pump spell. You still just get in there. There are some, but just doesn't really need it.
Yeah, my advice for Boros is try to put small, efficient creatures in your deck and then use them to kill your opponent.
First strike is strong, and that the combat trick that gives first strike and trample. I like that card.
Yeah, you always like the combat
course I
trick
do.
that gives first strike and trample. Those also worth
Because it gives
mentioning.
both. You usually don't get both. That's why it's good.
It is an interesting combination, right? Like first strike just wins combat, and usually it's at the expense of like, oh, I'm not going to get any damage through, but like you blocked like a fool, and then trample is like, whoa, that's excessive. On top of your creature dies, and also you take damage. Like
Yes.
yeah, and my creature, by the way, totally fine. It survives. So it is a deadly. It's not quite as like. Ridiculous. Imagine first strike, death touch, and trample. Whew.
That would be
There's
sick.
a combat trick.
Yeah,
It's
there
like,
you go.
A 1 point goes on your blocker. That's enough to kill it.
And the rest
then-
on your face. Yeah.
Yeah. It is, I think, worth calling out 17 lands data. You know, if you trust it. Boros is the best deck in the format, has the highest win percentage at nearly 60%, 58.7. Now, the numbers, don't take the numbers too seriously. Like, the people who contribute to this website are all good players. So, like, every deck has above a 50% win rate. But Boros has the highest win rate. And that is relevant. Like, we were talking last time about, hey, maybe it's just new format aggro decks, like, catch people by surprise or they're dirtling around. Boros has, like, held on and still shown that it's just here to stay. But there's not a ton to talk about. It's like just the good white cards just work in this deck. The good red cards just work in this deck, and then you're playing a low to the ground aggro deck, right? Like,
Yeah. It's like the top 6 commons are all white and red for game in hand win rate. And so
right.
and the other thing with them is that the top 2, which is Scrapwork Cohort and Scrapwork Mutt, are both essentially colorless, so you don't even have to worry about your early plays hitting the right colors. So Scrapwork Cohort is a 4-drop, but it brings a body with it, and then it has Unearth, so it brings the body back.
Right.
But those cards being like, you know, the problem with some aggro decks is like, if you're 2 colors and you draw the wrong colors for your early plays, that becomes a problem. So if your early plays are artifacts, it doesn't really, it's not a problem.
Totally. Yeah. And that's what makes this so strong, right? It's like, and, you know, we talked about it, but I think this is the deck where Whirling Strike is the best. Like, you want, I don't know, I would play 2 copies. The third copy I might start to question.
Yeah.
But, like, I think 2 copies of Whirling Strike in this deck is almost a no-brainer.
Yes.
Which is the first strike trample card we were talking about earlier.
Yes. Let's kind of move on. What's the next deck you want to talk about?
I kind of want to talk about Azorius a little bit.
All right.
If that's okay with you.
Oh, no.
I love Azorius.
I do. I haven't really been able to draft this deck because it's another one of the ones that, like, most of the pieces tend to get, all the good white cards for it get taken up because they play it in the Boros deck. And then there seems to be a lot of, like, blue cards that go around that aren't really in this archetype. And so you just never, if I start playing blue cards, be like, oh, sick, hopefully I can do the soldier thing. You can't because somebody took it.
Right.
Even when I've started off in colors that I was thinking maybe I'd be going that way. So some of these flash soldiers are just a lot stronger than you think. Ambush Paratrooper specifically gets you. And it is just like this imminent threat that when you're playing a bunch of, like, either the little 1/1s or other little the soldiers that you make them with different cards or you have tokens and things, being able to pump it up is really helpful, especially with a bunch of random power stones you get. Also, we didn't talk about this before, but white having disenchant seems pretty huge because that card is just a legit card. Like, you really want to have that because it's just straight removal in this set.
Yeah. Disenchant's a lot better in this set than it usually is in limited, right? So stapling that onto something is like, it's a powerhouse.
Yeah, especially because most of the artifacts you're trying to deal with in this set are huge. And so they tend to be the one card that's stopping the aggro deck from getting through. So it being in one of the aggro or the aggro color really is helpful.
Yeah. And I think it's like generally accepted that white is strong, but maybe not as strong as red, kind of thing. Like obviously Prison Sentence is good, so it's good here. I think this set, or this deck in particular, you know, I love it because it's Azorius and it's aggro, and that's so rare in Limited. Like, you know, we talk about it in Constructed occasionally, but in Limited it almost never happens. But there's some actual like payoffs for it. Like there's Aeronaut Cavalry at common, which is the 3/4 flyer that puts +1/+1 counter on a soldier. Even just like the 2/2 flying Browse guy, forget his name, but like the card's surprisingly good. Just as a 2/2 flying, it's like a Windrake soldier, with upside. Ends up being really really strong. And then there's obviously like, I don't know. There's like the Lord, right?
Yeah, exactly. The uncommon Lord is just obviously what you're looking for this set.
Right, that's what you want. And so I think they're like, this is one of those interesting draft archetypes where some of the commons is like only you want them. Like Aeronaut Cavalry is like, I don't know, that's a soldier card or whatever. You're not going to fight, you know, because the problem is white's pretty good. You might be fighting people. The only one who wants this is the soldier deck.
Yeah.
And it has some like huge payoffs. So to me, this is like, and by the way, this is the second highest win rate on 17 lands at 57.5%. To me, this is like, if you get one of these payoffs early, then you start to keep an eye out because you know you'll get some of these soldier-based commons a little later. So you're just like, I got the Soldier Lord. Or like, you know, it is worth mentioning, there's some busted soldier rares. Like if you happen to open, you know, Siege Veteran, it's obviously going to be good in any white deck, but like in a soldier deck, it's like especially ridiculous. Or Mural, you know, it's like, yeah, if you start with one of these busted uncommons or rares that's so good in the soldiers deck, you keep an eye out, you know? And I love archetypes like that because it's so easy to just be like, didn't get there. I guess I don't play the like Soldier Lord. I'm white, black or something.
Yeah.
Right?
But the thing is with but that's still like a good card because there will be a bunch of random soldiers if you're playing some of the other things.
But like, I don't know about splashing blue in the white black.
Sorry. No, if you're specifically splashing
Siege Veteran, you keep Siege Veteran in, but like the white blue Soldier Lord, that's what I was thinking.
Sorry, I meant more so like if your deck doesn't seem like you're still in the colors, but you don't seem to have enough soldiers, and it doesn't feel like a quote unquote soldiers deck. Still play the card, but no, you're not going to splash for the Lord. That doesn't work with your stuff.
It might be worth like interjecting at this point because I did want to talk about it. I have found splashing like tough.
It is
format. Like
it's pretty hard.
Generally don't want to do it.
Yeah.
So it has to be like a powerhouse. Is that what you found as well?
I think I feel very similarly. Like I was thinking kind of with some of the prototype or the unearth things like, I can splash some of these things and if I get to unearth it or prototype it, great, but otherwise it's fine. And that hasn't really been the case. Most of the prototype cards I want to play that are like would want to play them for the other side, it seems like they have double pips, and so you're just not going to be able to splash it.
They were very like cognizant in their design of like not making them splashable.
Most of the fixing is in like the retro frame artifacts, it feels like.
Right.
And they're usually not great fixing. It's like pay 2 mana, that one crystal that costs 2 to play it and you draw a card and then you can pay 2 into it to make 1 of any color. There are some things like that. So I've just felt like, probably not the best idea. You just probably don't want to splash so many things. Like maybe like I could play like Mishra's Juggernaut in a deck just because I want to have a big beater at the top, and if I don't get to unearth it, I feel kind of okay. But for the most part,
sure. I'm
not looking to splash. I'm looking to splash. really.
And I think that's the way splashing looks in this format. It's like you got to be okay with the card, and there's like an upside, and even then you have to decide, should I play the swamp or whatever? Like, should I play the off-color land to just in case this ever happens? Like, is that worth the times that this might happen where I unearth this thing or whatever? Is that going to counteract the times when I draw swamp and I really needed whatever island or plains?
Yeah.
And I found, like, the reason I asked you is because I've won a lot of games because my opponents are trying to splash. And then what they eventually end up playing off they finally hit their land and they play their splash card. It's just like, was not impactful enough.
Wasn't good enough.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
It just wasn't, it was like, okay, you played that. Like, they just didn't equalize the number of turns that you were behind on board for having that in your hand.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to assess because I'm on the other side of it most of the time. But it's been like my experience that like, hey, splashing is tough and like generally not worth it. So like if you have a super bomb, go ahead and splash. But like
Right.
the format doesn't make it easy on you.
Well, the other thing
it's not
is
one
like
of these formats where there are dual lands running everywhere and like, go
like
fetch
it's,
a basic.
it's not Dominaria United, which is exactly what we were dealing with before. Yeah, most of the
Right.
fetching of the basics, like we have the bushwhack will help, and that's usually when I feel a little bit more confident if I have a couple of those.
Yeah.
But then
for sure.
I also have to know that if I'm purposely putting bushwhack in my deck to go get a land, I need to not count it as much as a removal
Yes.
spell. It's
Correct.
mostly going to be going to get a land, and then I need additional removal on top of that. So that is important. Don't forget that card is amazing.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
awesome. But-
It's worth mentioning because, like, if your deck doesn't function without the bushwhack being an intermediary between your lands, you should not count it as a removal spell then.
Exactly.
Because
It will never
You think of
be
it
that.
as like a mana fixer and not a removal spell.
Yeah.
Even though there will be some games where it comes in clutch as the removal spell because you just happen to hit your lands or whatever.
And I do want to say I did misspeak. Energy Refractor is not part of the retro frame artifacts. It's just one of the. It just feels like one of them to me because it just
Unacceptable.
Yeah, it's seemingly.
You know what? I'm gonna have to find another card. This is ridiculous.
I just saw that as I'm looking through things. Jeff, what's the next best deck in the format?
Yeah, let's just go by best, right? So the next best deck is it?
Yeah.
So I'll admit I don't have a ton of experience with Is It. I understand it's like an Is It spells thing. It's like super common. That's what it is.
Also haven't really seen it. I think maybe once I dealt with it, and they had a Teferi, so it really didn't feel like a regular version of the deck.
Teferi is one of those bomb cards.
Yeah.
That is very difficult to beat.
So, and that felt almost mono blue anyway. And that was probably, and like obviously they like the prowess creatures because you're spell slinging. But I still think that these decks are really hard to put together in limited. But I don't know if it's just because 17 lands users are more seasoned. And so then the decks come together a lot better. I thought this was a lot easier to put together in the last format where you had Tolarian Terror.
Tear the Peaks is a very strong card. But
Yeah, but
probably
not a spell
the
slinger
point
deck.
you're making.
No.
Yeah.
So I felt like it was much easier to make that deck then and other times even back in like Innistrad last year. But I see the uncommon go around a lot. The big payoff. And
Third Path Iconic Class.
yeah. And I've seen that go around a lot, but I just never feel like I'm getting a lot of the other pieces that I'm looking for that deck. And so it mainly the red cards, because people are so high on like thinking red is the best. I just can't. The closest like spell slinging deck I ever had ended up being a Boros deck, and it wasn't. It wasn't. I was like, oh, am I splashing for the third path?
You're like, I have a bunch of excavation explosions.
Yeah.
This is a really good, Is It deck.
Exactly. It was so. Yeah, exactly. It was so strange that I didn't end up getting the blue cards I was looking for, but I had the red ones instead, which just never, ever happens. But Yeah, so I'd say if you're trying to do that, you might be able to get the uncommon. If you see that going around, then that's a good chance to be like, I want to jump into this, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, it's insanely powerful. Like a 2-drop that creates 1/1s sort of as prowess or whatever.
Yeah,
is crazy good.
Is crazy good. So I would just say the red cards are the ones that are going to be hard to come by. So if you see some of the blue stuff going around and you see that card, the deck might not be open. It just might look like it. So
yeah, is it work so well to go into after Azorius because it's like the complement of it, where it's like white's strong, and it's the same thing here. Red's really strong, blue's considered less strong.
Yeah.
This, and I just want to touch on a point of yours about like 17 lands players. It's not even just that the deck comes together for them more often. Like one way to think about it is they don't go into the deck unless it's there.
Yeah.
And therefore, like, they're naturally going to have a better deck whenever they end up in it because they're good drafters and they identify that that's open. I don't know if we have this data, but I bet if you look at, like, how many times this deck was drafted in that win rate calculation, it would be less than the other decks because it's like, it's just hard to get into this. It's a tough deck to build, but the payoffs are there if you can do it. That's what that data tells us, essentially. It's like, it doesn't mean this is an amazing deck and you should force it. What it means is like, hey, if you are confident in building a limited deck that is Izzet spells, which is difficult to do because there's always the balance of creatures and spells. How many of each do you have? It's very difficult to do. But if you're confident with that and you feel it's open, like, it's there for you. It's worth that payoff. Sometimes we see the Izzet Spells deck, and it's like, it's not even worth it, because, like, even when I get there, the deck is mediocre or bad, and it's like, that's just too many hoops to jump through.
Yeah.
What we're seeing here is, like, it is worth it if you are willing to jump through those hoops, and if it's there for you.
Yeah.
Personally, every Izzet deck I've played against has been trash. But that's not... that doesn't mean that you can't build a good Izzet deck.
We're playing in the tiers you're probably playing in too. So I'm definitely not playing against like mythic ranked players who are building these decks. So that's probably why I don't see it. All right, Jeff, let's talk about one more deck before we go to a beer break.
Yeah, Gruul is the next best deck. More aggro. Izzet, I think, probably you don't consider it aggro, but certainly Boros, Azorius are aggro, and now Gruul as well. It's sort of similar in that, like, it's what Gruul is, right? Like, when we talked about Boros, it's like, it does what Boros does. It plays small, cheap creatures, tries to kill the opponent. Gruul does what Gruul does. It's a little bigger than Boros, so it's like bigger creatures, it's more powerful, but it's still trying to get you dead as soon as possible. And there's not a lot of subtlety here. It's not like a different sort of weird things going on. It's beatdown. Like, cards you'd expect to be good are good here. Good red and green 2-drops are the core commons. I would say in classic Gruul fashion, like, you want a giant growth or two.
Yes.
Or whatever, that kind of effect, right? Obviously, like, there's actually a lot of combat tricks in this format, so whatever, you can get your hands on them in Gruul. But
Gaia's Gift, maybe?
yeah, Epic Confrontation. I don't know if that... Is that a combat trick?
No, it's a fight spell.
Yeah.
But I do play green often enough because it always feels like it's open for me. And this deck, so I feel like there is a statistic on 17 lands that is saying that the Aeronaut's Wings wins quite often, but usually that's because you have one copy of it and it goes into a big deck like this where you want to attack with your huge ground creature, and that's what gets it through. So that's a big reason why you want that. So if you're playing this deck and you have giant creatures, getting some flying in there is really helpful. And
that, like, accentuates the ability of your giant growth types effects, because now they can function as kill spell, like with
lightning bolts
spells, right? Yeah.
Which is strong. And Mask of the Jade Crafter, the uncommon that makes a big golem, is strong. The versatility of like the gold uncommon is really great because it either pings off a creature with 1 power, is a 3/3 with trample and haste, or you get a power stone to play some of your bigger stuff. Which is it's interesting because of the uncommons, it's the one that doesn't feel like it has a good place to like nail down. Like it doesn't say like, this is exactly what I do. It's a bit more like a toolbox, which is usually more helpful in these scenarios, especially as it's coming on a creature. It's not just a random spell that sits in your hand till the right time. It's deal attacks and stuff. I think a lot of this deck also is just, I would lose often to just
fatties.
Baddies. What's the card called? The 3-mana 3/3. That when an artifact enters, it gets +1/+0. That card being like 3/3 into 3/3 into the wings and put it on, and then one has flying and the other ones are bigger, and I just kept having to chump.
Perimeter Patrol.
Yeah, Perimeter Patrol. It just that isn't like a fantastic card, but it reminds me of this deck because it's just like, all right, kill your blocker, attack you for 3. Play this big beater, attack for 8 because you have 2 of them. That kind of stuff always seems to come at you. And this deck is the one that if you're trying to race with them, because you're like, oh sweet, we'll just swing back and forth, that's when they're going to slam the Boulder Branch Golem and gain a bunch of life. And you're just like, all right, well then it's over. As soon as you committed to racing them and then they gain some life, either by that or they also have Obstinate Baloth at uncommon, then you're like, oh fuck, nope, it's over. I shouldn't have raced.
And that's what I was gonna say. Like, this is where I've found the random like artifact fatties to be the most relevant is in this type of deck. The deck that like gets you dead quickly and then maybe needs a little bit of reach and then it just slams a big thing. Boulder Branch Golem you've called out, but I've even like been, I don't want to say impressed, but like semi-impressed with Rust Goliath out of these decks.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, hey man, sometimes just it's a big thing, and it's like, damn, that because wasn't ready to beat a Rust Goliath.
Yeah, well, a lot of what will happen is if your game plan is soldiers, like flying soldiers, a Rust Goliath says, nope, fuck you. You can't. And
because that card has reach, by the way, folks.
Yeah.
It has reach.
And it's a 3/5 when you play it for prototype. So it's just like, oh, this is some of my combat tricks don't even get me up to that. Like I'm having because like if you're attacking with,
let alone if it's a fucking 10/10.
Yeah, exactly. So then your deck, it's just a lot better than it kind of looks. So having one of those is helpful. I don't like having a bunch, but
and I wouldn't recommend Rust Goliath for every deck, but for this deck where it's like you can get under them pretty well, and then you just need something to punch in the rest of the damage. It's pretty good there, or in like a super defensive posture where you just need to not lose to flyers. It comes in huge.
It does. Also, just like random mentions that Argothian Opportunist, I do actually really like.
Super good in this deck.
Yeah, just because being able to play to the board and get a 3-mana 3/2, but then also getting a Power Stone, sneaky good. Sneaky good.
Right, this deck's already interested in a 3-mana 3/2. And then if you are playing Rust Goliath or a Boulder Branch Golem, that Power Stone's huge. So.
Because then that's the point where you're like, oh, either you ramp it out faster and you get your 3/5 to reach trample earlier, or you're like, maybe I can even get the reach to the 10 lands, or I guess 9 lands in this Power Stone.
Hey, I have played against a properly cast Rust Goliath. I still won because, it took them too long to get there, but they have cast it.
Yeah. So it will happen. Those things do happen. It's like Argothian Sprite. The 2-mana 2/2 that can't be blocked by artifact creatures. It does have an activated ability that puts 2 +1/+1 counters on it, not just 1. So that has got me multiple times where I continue to forget that it puts 2 on this creature because I don't count like that most of the time. I'm like,
that card always throws me off for a different reason, which is that for me, like fairies always fly.
Oh,
This
yeah.
thing just doesn't have flying.
No, it has that weird thing where they used to write it where it's like, oh, can only be blocked by creatures with flying and reach, but this one just
Right.
can't be blocked by artifacts.
Artifact. Yeah.
Which ends up being good because a lot of the tokens are artifacts, so you're just like, tokens can't block me. Anyway,
Yeah.
that is the first 5 archetypes for the draft. But Jeff, I think we need a beer break so we can refill before we talk about the rest of them.
Sounds good.
This beer break is brought to you by our patrons over on Patreon.
That's right. You're already supporting the show just by being a listener, but if you want to support the show even more, the Patreon, well, that's the best way to do that. Plus, you get to vote on your favorite co-host by clicking the big old Buy Jeff a Beer button.
Or by clicking the big ol' Buy Zach a Beer button. So go to patreon.com/arenaregulars to vote on which host you like the most.
Or if you'd rather send us beer emojis than actual real beers, we understand. You can join us on the Arena Regulars Discord channel. The link should be in the show notes.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Bringing the second wedge beer this week as we continue with our giant tap takeover of these 2 breweries. Jeez, it feels like it's been forever.
It's been a long time.
But not in a bad way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tonight I have Second Wedge's Blonde Ale. It is their Elgin Blonde? Elgin Blonde. How am I supposed to say
yeah.
this? Elgin.
Okay, so Elgin is a huge street in Ottawa. It's like in the downtown Ottawa core.
Okay.
One of the bigger streets called Ottawa. Couple of blocks from where I grew up.
Okay.
My parents lived just a couple blocks off Elgin. If memory serves, and also this is all like through the grapevine, so I don't totally know. But my understanding is that Elgin was a settlement for freed slaves back in the 19th century, like Underground Railroad kind of stuff. Like this is where freed slaves were hanging out.
That's cool.
At a place called Elgin here in Ontario. And so a lot of stuff in Ontario is named after Elgin because of that.
Well,
like
look
a
at that.
proud moment in history for it kind of thing.
Fantastic. Love it. Yeah, this is also 4.3%. Very cool. Well, thanks for telling me about that. Nice. Anyway, let's go into the rest of the decks we need to talk about, i.e., not the 4 decks we talked about earlier. Whoops.
Don't you mean 5?
Yeah, I said 5, but then Jeff reminded me we didn't talk about Simic yet, and I just thought, why?
Didn't we explain all of our thoughts on Simic already?
I think people just know in general, but
it's not only bad, but like we always hate Simic. So.
yeah, yes. So, do we need to talk about Simic? I've been playing a lot of it, but just because it's open, because nobody likes it, and
Yeah, it's open for a reason.
yeah, it's not great. Don't love it. So, it's all the good green cards in Gruul, but none of the good red cards, and just some blue stuff that does things that, meh.
Yep.
Meh.
Yep. That's how I feel about it as well.
Yep.
So,
Perfect.
there you go. That's our Simic talk.
There we
Now
go.
we're up to
Moving
5.
on.
It looks to me like the next best performer is Celestia. Zach, do you have a lot of experience with Celestia?
I've played against it a lot. I feel like this is the deck I run into often. Basically playing a bunch of the cards we've already talked about and just falling into green. But we haven't talked about Airlift Chaplain yet, which I do really like. And most of the time I'm playing this, maybe that's a white-black card in my mind. But this and also the Prowler, I tend to really enjoy. Especially because the green cards, there's like the theme, it's usually green-black, is like have creatures in your graveyard. But playing these together, you know what? I want to start off this whole thing again because I'm talking about 2 different decks that aren't even the one I'm supposed to talk about. Really what Celestia is going wide with tokens like they always want to. I did want to ask you what your thoughts on mass production are, which is the 6-mana sorcery that makes 4 1/1 soldiers. I played against this a couple times today and was doing like losing, but like I was like, why am I losing? I think this card sucks.
So I think it's a mediocre. I was going to say mediocre. I think it's kind of a bad card.
Yeah.
Except in I was going to talk about it specifically in Celestia. I think this is where you can take advantage of it. It can go hard, but you need like your the Celestia like staple uncommon, the 1/1 that gets +1/+1 whenever an artifact creature or puts a counter on somebody whenever an artifact like then it's amazing, right? Because it's like then it's pretty close to like Titania's command, so it just makes like a bunch of creatures and a bunch of counters. So specifically in this deck, I think it's worth taking a copy and putting it in your deck, and it can be very powerful. I agree with you though that generally it's not a good card. It's not like this goes in any white deck, especially because white is so good in this format. You just don't need to reach this far. You just don't need to put that card in most of your decks.
You don't need a 6-drop that is this.
Right.
Though I have run into this deck I was playing with recently that was playing this card. I've played against Quiet as Spike so many times.
Which card is that?
That's one of the retro artifacts that is an equipment. I think it costs 2 to play, 3 to equip. It gives the creature death touch, and if it deals combat damage to the player, it halves their life total.
Yes.
Which is the only time where I was like, okay, I don't even love this game plan of like, all right, get 6 minutes. Make the 1/1s have death touch, and then you have to block them, or you're gonna lose half your life.
Fucked if you do, fucked if you don't. It's like if I block, I lose my creature to a goddamn 1/1. But if I don't block, I lose half my life.
Exactly. So that was interesting. But I think this card is a trap. I think it's trying to say, hey, do you remember playing Kamigawa Limited? And there was that 6-mana white spell that made 3 2/2s, and you get to scry. Yeah, this is the same card. It's not the same card. It's not.
I think so. I think so too. I think it's only good in Celestia, and even then, like, I could imagine that the best versions of Celestia don't play it.
Yeah.
Like you don't need to.
I don't strive to play this card. So anyway.
Right. But I think it's not the end of the world if one of these ends up in your Celestia deck, kind of thing.
For sure.
As like a top end.
Especially if you have a couple of suits.
Because Celestia is, as you mentioned, like go wide artifacts. And that's what this is. It's go wide artifacts.
Yep.
So it synergizes naturally. I don't think I'd put it in any other white deck, to be honest. Yeah. Just this one. I honestly was a little surprised to see this. I mean, I guess it's mediocre. I guess it's mid-pack. I guess I'm not surprised then. Because when I've played against it, it's always been like, that felt pretty medium, like what my opponents were trying to do with it.
Yes. Yeah, Celestia is not a color combination I'm trying to play in this format. So
right. But it's like the best of the mediums, according to 17 Lines.
Yeah, which, I don't know, maybe? It just doesn't even seem fun, so I don't know. Maybe
it's not my cup of tea. I actually am a fan of tokens. I'm just not a fan of this implementation of tokens.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just not for me. But if you love Celestia, like the deck is solid, and if you find yourself there, like don't shy away from it. But it's not a powerhouse. It's like upper mid pack, and that's it really.
Yeah.
You want less combat tricks, I guess. The other green decks, you kind of want combat tricks. I would say you don't want them as much here, like Giant Growth. And it always sounds appealing, but it's kind of weird that Giant Growth and Tokens decks actually don't synergize, even though you'd kind of think they do. But a big part of Giant Growth is that you want to keep your creature around after combat, and you just don't care about a 1/1. So it's like you don't care about a huge hidden part of Giant Growth, which is that your creature survives the combat.
Yeah.
And so even though it's always like, oh, it's awesome, like my 1/1 can kill something, or I have 4 1/1s, one of them's going to get through, and I can actually get in for a bunch of damage with pump spells. It's a little counterintuitive if you don't have a lot of experience that actually, like those kind of 1-on-1 combat tricks are really bad in decks like this, Mass pump spells, yes, obviously great. But one-on-one combat spells are pretty bad in these types of decks.
Yes. Perfect. Let's move on to another deck.
Get out of here, Celestia.
Get out of here. We should talk about Rakdos because I'm surprised how low it is on this list as far as win percentage, because it seemed like one of the front runners like out the gate enough that I hated one of the commons. And it's the type of deck where you have, good and cheap sacrifice outlets and like a threaten effect. So why is it not doing better? Is it because people are privy to it? And is it because red is really strong and maybe loses a bunch of the pieces? You can't get all the good red cards you want. Like I was saying before, the Goblin Blast Runner I can't get anymore. So maybe that's
I think that's definitely part of it. I'm also surprised to see it as mid-pack because I think Junkyard Genius is busted. Like, if you get a couple of Junkyard, which is the red-black signpost uncommon, like, it's insanely good. And it's so easy to win the game when you drop this card and it doesn't die. So it feels very like Baneslayer-y, where it's like, if you untap with this card, you just win. So, and when I played it, actually, I said a 21 and 2. I think you brought that up, but I did go 21 and 2. You're correct. But over the course of 3 drafts, that was 7-1, 7-0, 7-1. The 7-0 was Rakdos, and the 7-1s were Boros. That deck had 3 Junkyard Geniuses, so maybe we shouldn't put too much stock into the data obtained from my 7-0 run when I had
probably not
an absolutely ridiculous deck. But yeah, it feels strong to me. What I'll say is, like, generally, Rakdos in this set, it's a sacrifice strategy. Surprise, surprise, Rakdos theme is sacrifice. Sacrifice decks are a little harder to play, so the win rate will naturally suffer a bit from that. But yeah, I think probably it's just that, like, black is not as strong as white, I guess, is what we're talking about. Like, we want an aggro deck. Boros is better because white is just a stronger color in this format than black. I'm not totally sure, but I was surprised to see it this far down the list as well.
I don't know, it seemed really strong. I like the only 7-win run I had was Rakdos, so I was like,
hey, both of our 7-win. Well, I was 7-0.
Oh yeah, thanks for rubbing it in, Jeff.
Oh, sorry, I thought you said 7-0 for a second.
No, I just said 7-win.
So wait, you have drafts where you don't get 7 wins? That's so weird.
Oh yeah, jeez. So that was surprising to me. I was expecting it to be much higher because it's one of the ones that I feel is extremely powerful.
And like sibling rivalries, which is like the active treason-y kind of thing, is actually super good in this deck, at least in my experience.
Yeah, it's super good.
Like the Power Stone token is a really strong
addition,
like bonus in this deck because you sacrifice it to other stuff, and like you can actually make use of it outside of just ramping. So while the card looks a little weird at the start because it's like aggro decks want it, and then its bonus is to create a ramp thing, which is true in most decks, but like in this deck, you can make use of the artifact token that it creates.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, it gives a Power Stone because the sibling rivalry is that they're fighting over a Power Stone. But
I get the flavor. I'm just saying, like, generally, that is not a good card. It's like, am I an aggro deck or am I a ramp deck?
Yeah.
But in this deck, because you can sack that Power Stone token to something like a Junkyard Genius
or Pendragon Strongbow, then that's great.
Ends up being a lot better. And I even I like Mishra's research deck or desk in this deck. Maybe that's just a card that I love.
No,
because we've talked about it and constructed. But in this deck, I think that's where you want this card. Because it gives it's like this, now you become this aggro deck with weird card advantage. And that's always, anytime you have an aggro deck with card manage, it's like very tough to beat. The problem is, of course, like Junkyard Genius and Mishra's research desk every time are uncommons.
Yeah.
So maybe that's it. But like, you know, it also has the best common in the set, Goblin Blast Runner.
Is it the
at its best in
best?
this deck?
Whatever. I still don't think it's the best, but I do think it's good.
It's very good in this deck, especially
Yes.
because it's like you're sacking stuff incidentally already, and it's just like, oh, I guess this. Like I won some games where I like forgot that this thing would get menace, because you read this, you're like, oh, okay, it gets +2/+0 when you sack something.
Yeah.
Got it. And then you forget that, oh, it gets menace? Oh, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and you're like, geez. But
That's a lot of damage for a 1-drop late in the game.
I still think it's strong, but maybe it's not winning all the tournaments now that we have all these limited tournaments happening.
That's right. I love it, but obviously I'm so biased, so it's just like my favorite archetype.
Yeah,
Although I guess in limited, I'm just a Boros guy, so...
yeah, that's true.
I will say that even though I went 7-0 with this and 7-1 with the Boros decks, like, Boros felt better. The Boros decks, like...
Feel better.
I think I had a crazy version of the Rakdos deck, and I had mediocre versions of the Boros deck, and it was, like, slightly less powerful, but, like, similar, like, in the conversation. And so that leads me to be like, yeah, I think Boros is way better in this format. Even before seeing the 17 lands data, it was just like, I understand that my one Rakdos deck that I had was just a ridiculous version of that deck.
Yeah, exactly. Another deck I want to talk about, Golgari, which I was starting to talk a little bit about before with the Chaplain.
This was your front runner coming in. I know you played that the pre-release. You're like, hey, Golgari might be a thing.
Yeah, and it is not enough of a thing, but it's still super fun.
Exactly mid-pack as always. Way to go, Golgari.
But it has like the best gold uncommon. It feels like it.
That's true. That's true. The Golgari, like the spider, is the best uncommon in the set, probably.
It's as far as like what it can do.
But yeah, if you were evaluating on just what the card does and not like the fact that it's gold Golgari.
Yeah, where you have to play that color.
Right.
But no.
If you have to play Golgari, yeah, it kind of sucks. But no, it's really good. It's like I'm considering I'm considering splashing green in my red-black sacrifice decks for this card in Constructed. That's how good this card is.
It's awesome. I love it. Playing too much in the self-mill thing can be rough, especially when you're trying to make sure that you can get your reanimate spell. You don't want to mill that over, and that just tends to be the thing that happens, because this deck likes reanimating things, and, well, you just happen to mill your reanimate card every time you try to do it. So
always,
yeah, that's just kind of.
Do you ever mill the big baddie you want to reanimate? No, of course not.
No,
that thing's never gets.
No, you
milled.
draw that. In your
you draw
opening hand.
that.
Yeah,
you draw that bitch. Yeah. Do you ever mill the reanimate card? Yes. Every time.
Every single time.
That's why Unburial Rites is like the gold standard for reanimate cards, because when you mill it, it actually gets better.
Yeah, it does it too. So I will probably have to step back from me thinking that this would be a deck, though I do like it, but I don't have a lot to say about it besides the normal.
I think it's just one of those things, like you get an early Skyfisher Spider, the card is that good that you should end up, and because flashing's so difficult, you should maybe end up in Golgari, but like, other than that, if you don't get a bomb rare or the spider or something, this isn't necessarily where you want to end up. So it's one of those things that's, keep an eye out for it. If you get really powerful cards for the archetype, don't like snub it away. Oh, Golgari's bad. But also, don't try to like maneuver yourself in there without those payoffs, because you're just going to end up with kind of a mediocre deck, because like my rating on green and black is they're both mediocre colors.
Makes me sad to say it, but you're probably right. Overwhelming Remorse is one of those cards that like looks like it's a Golgari card because it's talking about creatures in your graveyard, but it's obviously just amazing removal, so everybody's playing it.
That's exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, just 5 mana exile a creature is good in limited formats at instant speed.
But it's usually never that. It's always cheaper because
It's never 5 mana. Yeah.
everyone plays creatures.
Because you're playing a game of limited.
Yeah, so duh.
I do like that they don't like stack with each other. Like, because they exile, having a bunch of them doesn't make the next one cheaper, which I think is nice design.
Yeah, but it wouldn't anyway because you're not destroying your own creature. It's only creatures in
Oh
your
yeah, of
graveyard.
course, creature in your
Yeah,
graveyard. Yeah. You know, what? I stand by my comment. It's
yeah.
still true.
It's still you're right. It still is true.
Still true.
But the exile is
of course.
yeah is huge because obviously different unearthed cards tend to be the thing.
Right.
Also, there, like I've said before in other podcasts, Orzhov, which is a deck we'll probably talk about next, has a ton of reanimate stuff. There are so many cards that get things back from the graveyard or put them in your hand or put them on the battlefield. It's crazy. So being able to exile things is huge because it comes up a lot.
So up next, we're going to talk about Orzhov.
Hey, look at that. Wow, so crazy.
This is the one for me that I was shocked to see that this is one of the worst decks.
I was too. This is one of my favorite decks. This is like the
yeah,
deck.
me too. I've never played it, obviously, but like when I was playing against it, I was like, that's kind of what I want to be doing.
This is good. Like, and I do want to sit down and just be like, all right, so you have No One Left Behind, which is a great. This is like exactly this is the card I want to see all the time, and I tend to see it, and I pick it so highly. But
I know maybe that's our problem.
that's probably what it is. But reanimating a creature from the graveyard to the battlefield, it costs cheaper if the creature is 3 or less. Awesome. Perfect for the deck. That's exactly the kind of stuff you want to do. Emergency Weld. You return a artifact or creature to your hand, and you get a 1/1. Awesome. I love that card. You're playing the other white reanimate cards because there's 2 of them. It's just like you get Recommission, which gets little things to the battlefield with counters on them, and Repair and Recharge, which can't do creatures, but most of the stuff you're reanimating that's big is an artifact anyway. So
Right.
I love it. I love it.
You know, the signpost uncommon Hero of the Dunes or whatever, it reads really well. I mean, to be fair, when I've played against it, it's always been a little underwhelming compared to like what it looks like when I read it. I'm like, this card seems insane. Like, you get to like reanimate. It's a 3/2 that you get to reanimate another creature, and then also it gives it like +1. Isn't this card ridiculous?
Yes.
But it's always just been like,
Yes.
Mostly because I'm like Boros and you're already dead. And
Yeah.
whatever.
And usually the cards that you're bringing back, like, I think best case scenario when you're playing that is obviously when you're reanimating things, you want them to be really big, but this one won't let you. And most of the 3-drop and under stuff is just not good enough. You didn't feel super great. The best card, the one that I liked the most, was Airlift Chaplain, because then you get to mill more cards, either get a planes or another 3-drop into your hand. And so doing that as you're trying to because I was like trying to reanimate big stuff and also get all my little things that would fill my graveyard. So if I have a bunch of Airlift Chaplains, I would like that. And sometimes they're, you reanimating, they're getting counters and they're flying. So that was what I liked. And it's a nice little bump, makes your dudes stronger. So that is also part of it that helps you just kill your opponent. That kind of gets overlooked when you're just looking at the card. You're like, oh, you reanimate things. Oh, you also make them bigger, though.
I will say, like, I really love that Wizards took the shot on this. I think Small Reanimator is an awesome, like, really cool idea archetype, and I love that they pushed it. I think the deck kind of suffers a little bit, like, now that I'm seeing the results and, like, trying to interpret them. It seems like maybe it just suffers a little bit from, like...
It works...
I'm the 3rd best aggro deck, or 4th best aggro deck if you count Rakdos, and, like, that's just going to hurt you. Like, you're an aggro deck, but there are 2 or 3 better options
ones
for aggro decks. That's just going to hurt your win rate in, like, any format, regardless of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because like people are preparing for the good aggro decks, and then they meet you, right? It's like,
Like, oh, I can push
sucks
you
to
over.
be you.
Yeah, and also like it works almost directly against like prototype, which is on purpose.
Yeah.
But sometimes there are those bits where you're like, because I'm thinking about all my cards as the prototype card, I'm thinking that the combat Thrasher or Thresher or whatever is a 3 mana 1/1 that draws a card and it has double strike, but I can't get it back
Right.
with any of those cards. So I'm like, fuck. Now it's just in the
right,
graveyard.
because of prototype.
Yeah, and it's like it's like, damn it. Which is a good thing, but also sad.
Yeah, it is weird, or not weird, but it's like interesting to have the small reanimator like in the same set as prototype.
Yeah.
Because prototype's supposed to be like, hey, I work well with reanimator, but not mana value based reanimator.
Exactly. But at least we have 4 reanimator cards. So, or I guess 3, really, and 2 of them don't care. So, it's fine.
I still love Orzhov, and I'm probably just gonna keep trying to draft it.
Yeah.
So I encourage everyone else. Hey, if you just like it, just do it.
Yeah.
Whatever.
It's the most fun.
Although it is
honestly, it's
statistically one of the
not
worst
good.
games.
Yeah. Let's keep rounding these out. We still need to talk about Dimir, and I think that's it. Sick.
Yeah, Dimir's at the bottom. I mean, Simic is the worst deck.
Dimir.
But, Dimir is worst if you consider the real pairs.
Yeah, because green blue is just not really a pair.
And for everyone's context, like Simic is the worst at 52.5% win rate, and Dimir is second worst at 54% win rate. So,
Yeah.
like, that's a big jump. Like, Simic is bad.
Yeah. Trust me, I've played it.
Yeah.
Dimir.
The rest of them, like Orzhov was 54.3, so like 0.3% off Dimir. But like, Simic is 1.5% off Dimir, and Dimir is bad. We're talking like a full 6.2% win rate from Simic to Boros. So
Yeah. And trust Jeff, he's a doctor.
that's right.
I played my first few matches with this deck today. I don't think I played it.
Okay.
I don't think I built a very good one. But it was kind of fun doing the like draw 2 thing a little bit.
Right.
But for the most part, it just feels a little too cute, and I just can't really get there. Though
Too Cute is exactly like my feelings of it. I have no experience. I played against it one time, and I annihilated it with I had a Boros deck, and they were. I don't really know what they were trying to do, but it wasn't good against 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop. Click the attack all button every turn. It just didn't hold up to that.
yeah.
The most I had like in the notes for this archetype was I love Evangel of Synthesis. I just think it's a cool card. But also I think it's curious, which is like the sidepost uncommon. I also find it a bit curious that like this used to be a red-blue mechanic. And they're trying to like now make it a blue-black mechanic. I think to me it makes more sense as an Izzet mechanic than a Dimir one. But they did like there was some effort to flavor it in a Dimir way, but I still think to me it just maybe it's because of my like history bias where like this was in Eldraine, this was an Izzet mechanic. It still just feels more like an Izzet mechanic to me.
Yeah.
But I like that they're like,
It
experimenting, trying stuff.
Yeah, it reminds me of like, it's really not that, but the flavor of it reminds me of like OG Ravnica when Dimir was like, bounce your stuff, make you discard a card.
Which I love, by the way. Like, super inefficient removal spell. But, like, bounce your thing, you discard.
Yeah.
Like,
maybe you
so
discard the
cool.
card I just bounced.
It just feels like a cooler way to get rid of a threat than, like, destroy that.
Yeah. Yeah, what's... I think I saw this on Instagram. It was like lightning bolt, but if it was blue. And it's just target... like creature is put on top of their owner's library, and then that player mills a card, and that's
And I mean, you know what it is? It's if it changes more zones, it's cooler.
Exactly.
The more zones that have to be interacted with, the cooler the card.
Exile target creature. At the end of turn, put the exiled creature into its owner's graveyard.
Yeah.
Boom. Got him. So cool.
But that's one of those weird things where like you think it's fun to design it and then somehow it's busted and the players figure it out and like create some ridiculous combo.
And you're like, no, I thought this was just
yeah, I just wanted to do something dumb. Guys.
dumb and funny. But no, apparently it's really good.
Yeah. Apparently it's broken to move cards between zones.
Yeah. Because I printed that other card that said every time a card changes zones, you deal 1 damage to your opponent or whatever.
I actually have this theory that like you could talk about a good card and a bad card, right? Mm-hmm. But if you want to talk about a powerful card, it's literally just about how many cards it makes change zones and like how many. So, exile your graveyard. That's powerful. It just makes a whole bunch of cards change zones, right? Might not be good. I don't know, but I've always just like that's like my shortcut for like is a card potentially very good? Does it make a lot of stuff change zones? It could be very good. I don't know how to use it, but like that's
could
powerful.
be very good.
That could be good.
Yeah. Oh man. Anyway, that's what we know about draft right now. I will say there is a little bit of an Auras deck that I want to build sometime that's gonna fall into my hands, and it's probably Simic or Celestia, or maybe all three, which will be really bad. But because we're playing, or maybe it's mono green. I'm probably trying to play mono green because we're playing Audacity. Love that card. We're playing Blanchwood Armor, which wheels constantly. Nobody plays Blanchwood Armor. And another card that nobody likes is the Honor Guard. Tomakul. Mm-hmm. There you go. Honor Guard, which has Ward 2. Sweet. Nobody likes that card. Awesome. I need a cheap creature that I can put auras on that is a little harder to deal with. And the Thran Power Suit, which is the equipment that gives it +1/+1 for each aura and equipment attached to it. And it has Ward 2 again. Boom. That's the dream right there.
Yeah, so good luck.
Yeah.
That's my only response to that. Good luck. I have a soft spot for Blanchwood Armor because my brother and I's first decks that we got, mine was, believe it or not, weirdly, mine was like a graveyard-based interaction deck that I got during Judgment.
Weird.
And my brother's was just like a green deck, and it had Blanchwood Armor in it, and he would always play it, and we were both like, this card is so, what does it give it plus like the 11 plus, it's so stupid, like, whatever. And so like I usually won. I'm the older brother, so obviously, I just punched him if he started to beat me.
Yeah.
But when he did win, it was always because of Blanchwood Armor. So I just have this like picture in my mind of him playing Blanchwood Armor, and I can picture the art and like that old school card version of it.
So cool.
I just have like that nostalgic attachment to that card.
Oh,
it's the only way I used to lose.
Yeah. Well, it's coming back, baby. I'm going to make you lose with Blanchwood Armor.
That's right. Now I'll be punching you if you play Blanchwood Armor. So.
Yeah, that's right. No, I'm going to be punching you in the face with my Honor Guard equipped with Blanchwood Armor. Boom. Or I guess enchanted.
It'll just be the instincts come out of me. You play Blanchwood Armor, just jump him and start punching.
Jump him. But anyway, could be awesome. There's maybe something in there, but probably not. But we have a couple protection spells that could help us out. If you're playing white, you can play the Lauren's Escape thing.
I do love secret draft archetypes. You know, when there's like something out there, but it's not. I don't know whether or not it's intended by Wizards, but it's not like one of the color pairs, and it's not like obviously in there or whatever. I don't know if this is that, Zach.
It's possible. There's also the Aura Take Flight, which gives +1/+0 and flying, and when it attacks, you draw a card, which is really important for Aura decks, is to draw cards. So, I don't know. These are all cards nobody really wants. So, maybe.
And that's how those archetypes work, right? It's like nobody wants these cards, and I really want them. I can get them. And generally, in my experience, that's just how good, like in the previous format, the mass red-white pump spells were only wanted by the red-white deck. It's part of what made the red-white deck so good, because you could just leave that and know you'll get it at the end.
Yeah.
And it's the best card in your deck, so maybe this is that.
Probably.
I don't think so.
Probably
I'll let you prove it to me, and then I'll start drafting that deck.
Yeah, I really want to do well with that deck, but I don't.
Once you start posting a few trophy runs with these Auras decks, I'll take notice. But till then, I'll let you figure out the
I'm gonna
secret
waste
Auras draft strategy.
I'm going to waste a lot of time and a lot of resources trying to make that happen. But anyway, it's what I love. Anyway, Jeff, let's go to last call, because I think we've said everything we can say about draft for the time being.
Yeah, definitely.
Each week, we rate the beers that we have drank on a scale of bronze to mythic, just like the tiers in Arena. Look at that. This has nothing to do with
Funny how
what
things
tier
work out.
you are in currently. It's just a fun way to rank beers, so don't feel bad if we are talking about how horrible bronze beers are, because bronze beers are trash. They are terrible. You have to throw them away. You spit them out on the ground. They are not worth ingesting.
Yes, silver beers are just kind of boring, really. There's nothing wrong with them, but you're not interested. Macro brews tend to fall into this category.
Yeah, gold beers are fine, but you won't really think about them that often.
And then platinum, these are solid. You would drink this again.
Diamond beers are exceptional. You love these, and you bring them to parties and share them with friends.
And mythic, these are the best of the best. These are like, what Boros is to draft. They're just like, this is exactly what you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Alrighty, Jeff, we have two beers that would normally sound like they are very, very similar, but are quite different. So
Yeah, I was going to say, spoiler alert, they are not similar.
they are not similar at all. But I know which one I want to pick for this evening. Do you know which one you'd like?
Absolutely.
Perfect. All right, we go. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Elgin Blonde.
Elgin, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Why don't we start with Pilly,
Pilly.
which is the one I chose.
Yes.
I thought this beer was decent. I thought it delivered on the promise of a Pilsner with slightly more flavor. Now, they said flavorful Pilsner. I don't know if they got all the way to flavorful, but it was Pilsner with more flavor than I'm used to.
Yeah.
That being said, this might be a hint about how I felt about Elgin as well. I didn't love the flavor that was presented here. I thought this beer was like trying to do something cool, which is, let's take a Pilsner, which people love and has that baseline, and then maybe tweak it a little bit, try to get something in there that it is a little more interesting. I don't know how well that idea works in practice, given like the people who like Pilsners probably like Pilsners, and the people who like something that is more flavorful like something that is more flavorful, and this is like the middleman. But the reason I chose it is because it, in my opinion, it delivers on, this is a Pilsner with a little more flavor.
Yeah. Yes, I agree with you. It is a Pilsner with more flavor, but I didn't really like the flavor. This has that kind of weird sock taste that I've talked about in the past.
Okay.
That I don't know what it is.
Zach's phantom sock taste.
Yeah, it has like, when you come inside from the rain and you take your shoes off and then your socks are soggy? This is what that reminds me of. And
It's like people that
I don't like it.
can't eat cilantro or whatever because it tastes like soap or whatever
Yeah.
they say it tastes like.
Maybe that's the thing. But
I feel like there's something that's going on there.
I don't know what it is.
This doesn't taste like wet socks to me. I don't know. I mean, I've never eaten wet socks, I suppose.
I probably have, honestly. But maybe that was my undoing. But
you should never eat wet. That's what we're learning here, folks. Don't eat wet.
don't
socks.
eat wet socks. But it's also a flavor that I get sometimes from like green teas that I don't like. That feel oversteeped.
Yeah, it's
Sometimes
probably
it has
like
that.
some sort of, it's a genetic thing like cilantro. Probably there's
I
some
don't
sort
know
of
if it
herb or
is. I don't think
whatever.
anyone else I've talked to has had this thing. But for whatever reason, it reminds me of wet socks, and so I don't care for it. And
We should get my brother, because my brother always has these things.
yeah, right.
We'll get him to taste it, and we'll see if he agrees with you.
What
Because
do
he's
you
always like, "Oh, it tastes like bubble gum." Bubble gum? What the hell are you talking about? Or this like, and like I look it up, and it's a thing that some people taste.
Yeah.
you know, and I'm like you just have all of the weird like genetic mistasting things at the same time.
Yeah. So with that, this Pilsner, I'm going to go straight to silver. I don't. I'll drink you,
Yeah.
but I don't like you very much. I'd rather drink like a macro Pilsner, and leave this on the shelf.
I have it at gold.
Okay. That's fine. If you don't taste the wet socks, it's okay. That's good. It's much better than what
I'm just saying, like I chose it, and I have it at gold. So maybe we can
Yeah.
surmise how I feel about the next beer.
Yeah, that's true. So go to the next beer, this blonde ale. I did choose this one. I don't know. I liked it. It tasted exactly like what I was expecting. It was really sweet compared to the last one, and it just felt very refreshing and different than the last one. All of it is in comparison with the last one. If I drank this first, maybe I'd feel differently. But because I was like, oh, what a breath of fresh air after what I just had to drink.
It doesn't taste like someone has been out in the rain walking around.
I don't
and
know
then
if
shoved their socks.
I don't know if the
in my
taste is exactly. It doesn't taste like sock rainwater, like you wrung it out and drank it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize there was different different types of wet socks.
It just, I don't know what it is, Jeff. I'm just trying to explain what I taste. So anyway,
I'm just trying to poke fun at you. That's
yeah, that's totally that's the podcast. This one, I still don't think is fantastic, but I liked it better than the last one. So honestly, it's probably silver too, because it tastes. You know, I can get almost exactly the same flavors from like a silver beer that's cheaper. But
So to me, this one is like the definition of silver. It's like there's nothing going on here.
Yeah.
Like, it's just boring. So I was silver right away. The other one, to me, I think it got bumped into gold because it's like it's not nothing going on. They tried something. They did something.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
they
tried to.
if they try to do something and I don't like it, they straight to silver. And
I agree. I'm just saying, like, that's my rating system. I was like, you know what? These both suck.
they both suck. Yes, they're both very bad. But hey, at least they're beer, so that's good.
But they're not bronze. They're drinkable. I drank all of both of them. So.
And for the record, we've never rated a beer bronze. I've tasted.
It's tough to get into that.
It's
category.
tough.
Yeah, we've
really
had bronze beers off air. We've
Yeah.
both encountered bronze,
and we
beers.
don't bring them to the show because we don't want to.
For some reason. Yeah.
Yeah, drinking that again, by definition, is something I don't want to do. Though I do think we should bring some, just to have it on record. Hey, don't go to this.
I'm still hopeful we'll catch, or hopeful. Hopeful is the exact opposite. But I still think we'll catch one in the wild at some point.
I don't know.
That's the authentic experience when we're both just like, oh my god, this is disgusting.
That's true. Then we have to
And we
drink
didn't
some
know
crazier
ahead of
stuff,
time.
probably. So
If we didn't know ahead of time that it was disgusting, like it's a different experience.
yeah, but anyway, maybe that's my new goal. I'm gonna make you drink some bronze beers and see if you rate it higher than that.
Mythic.
What
Loved it.
the fuck? No, who knows? Everybody's different. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
But anyway, enough of that. Let's go to closing time. So you can always reach us.
Closing time.
Oh, wow.
What?
Has it been like 50 episodes since you've done that?
It's been a long time.
It feels like it's been forever.
Yeah.
Oh, man. We're coming up on episode 100, so stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, Jeff's singing to us again, so yay. Anyway, You can always reach us at Arena Regulars on Twitter and Instagram.
Or you might find us on MTG Arena itself. We'll be under the username Arena Regulars Podcast.
If you want to find me personally, you can find me at Zulberg. That is ZeulBerg on Twitter and Instagram. But Jeff, where can they find you?
Best place to find me is on our Discord. My name is Regular Jeff on the Discord, and once again, you should be able to find the link to our Discord in the show notes.
And I'm Regular Zach there too, so find me there as well. Also, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, on iTunes. Follow us on Spotify and all the places you're listening to us right now. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Leave a comment. Any place that you can give us feedback, we would love to get it. It goes a long way. It makes us feel awesome. And so you should do that. All right, that's fine.